Imagine paying into your community for years, and then, watching a neighbor's kid stroll up your driveway, point at your motorcycle, and say, "I'll take that one." What would you do if your HOA acted like your property was a community vending machine? I'm telling you, that Saturday started like any other coffee steaming, birds doing their chirp thing, a little breeze working the wind chimes. I'm on the porch steps, boots on, just admiring my Harley under the old live oak. I've tuned that bike myself for over 12 years. Hand-polished chrome, pipes that purr more than roar. It's not fancy, it's mine. Then this teenage boy, skinny, baseball cap, older than his years, attitude stops at the curb, raises his chin, and points like he's at a dealership. "I'll take that one," he says. I laugh. "Sorry, kid. Not for sale." He doesn't blink. "Mom said you'd give it to me." She talked to the HOA. Mom lives across the cul-de-sac. Sunglasses. Arms folded. Posture like a ruler with a pulse. Karen. If there's a neighborhood rumor, it has to pass her checkpoint. She's waving now, big. Syrupy wave like I'm about to grant a wish. "You must be confused." I tell the kid. He shrugs. "She said the noise bugs the neighbors, and you don't ride it anyways." I ride every weekend. I say, slow and clear. And nobody is taking my bike. I set the coffee down and walk across the grass. Karen's already 2 steps into my yard, like she brought the property line with her. "Morning." She chirps. "What is this?" I ask. She nods toward the Harley. That thing is an eyesore. And the engine rattles windows. The board agrees. The neighborly thing would be to donate it to someone who'd appreciate it. By someone you mean your son. She smiles like a closing door. Exactly. He's turning 17 next month. It would be perfect. "No," I say. "And you're on my lawn." Her smile freezes. "If you won't be neighborly, I'll escalate this." I don't flinch. I've had longer stares across sand and heat in a different lifetime. Do what you gotta do. The kid huffs and follows his mom home, kicking at my curb like it offended him. I finish my coffee, breathe, and take the Harley out for a long loop back roads. Lake views. The whole therapy package. I come back mellow. Park under the oak's shade. And I'm still unbuckling my helmet when sirens roll in like a bad soundtrack. 2 cruisers. Doors pop. 2 officers step out. Hands near their belts. "Sir." Step away from the motorcycle. "Excuse me," I say. Palms open. "Step away, please." The taller one says, "We received a report of stolen property at this address." "You think I stole my own bike?" I ask, trying not to laugh. "A local resident alleges you promised her minor child this motorcycle and then reneged, constituting theft by deception." And here comes Karen, like she was hiding behind her blinds, waiting for the word stolen. She points at my Harley like she's leading a parade. "That's the one. He promised it to my son. Then he backed out. That's theft." I look at the officers. My paperwork is inside. Title, registration, VIN. The works. "Please remain here." The shorter one says, "Where is the paperwork?" "In the entryway. Top drawer of the oak console." They go in with my permission, and I stand there with a taste of burnt coffee in my mouth and the sound of entitlement buzzing at my ear. Karen leans over. "You know," she whispers, "you could have just done the right thing." I don't answer. The officers come back with the file. The tall one reads, glances at the VIN on the frame, nods. "It's his," he says. "Clean title. He's owned it for over a decade. Karen's face does a full weather pattern, sunny to thunderstorm. He misled us. She snaps. That's fraud. Ma'am. The taller officer says. Already half-turned. This is a civil matter. We're clearing the call. They leave. Karen does not apologize. She just tosses. We'll see. Over her shoulder, and marches home with her son trailing behind, scuffing the heel of his sneakers like he wants the pavement to feel it. A few days later, a letter is taped to my door HOA letterhead. Bold type. A tone that smells like lemon cleaner, and control. Notice of violation community courtesy standards. Your motorcycle causes undue noise. Your hostile attitude has created a toxic environment. You have failed to honor community commitments. In other words, Karen wrote a story and made it policy. I read it twice. Take a picture. And open my file cabinet. Documentation is armor. I've learned that the hard way. Title copy. Check. Registration check. Insurance check. Doorbell cam. Oh. Yes. The video shows the kid pointing and saying, Mom said you'd give it to me. I download the clip. Take a still. And email the whole bundle to myself. Then a backup email, because experience has taught me that computers get stage fright at the worst time. Next, I call Mark, an old friend from my veterans group who works at the state attorney's office. We're not best friends, but we've shared coffee and a few tough Tuesdays. I give him the short version. Kid demands my motorcycle. Karen calls the cops. HOA letter on my door, like a ransom note. He listens. Sounds like she's trying to weaponize the HOA to force a private property transfer. He says, that's not just neighbor drama. If she persists, there could be civil coercion in play. What do? Document everything. Keep it factual. If there's a meeting, go, calm, and prepared. And bring that video. I spend the afternoon building a folder thick enough to use as a doorstop. I print screenshots. Label them with times. Copy emails to a thumb drive. And jot down every conversation I can recall dates. Words. Tone. It's not paranoia. It's survival. The HOA announces a special meeting for Thursday evening. I show up early, in a clean button-down. Folder tucked under my arm like a shield. The clubhouse smells like coffee that's been reheated too many times, and the faint panic of carpet cleaner. Residents trickle in with whispers and sideways glances. Karen's already there. Flanked by 2 board members. Wearing a blazer, the color of authority. Bill, the HOA president, calls us to order. Gentle voice. Wire-framed glasses. The look of a man who ran for this gig thinking he'd order planters and ended up refereeing low-stakes wars. We have new business, he says. A complaint regarding persistent noise and a broken commitment. Karen stands like a debutante at a microphone. Mr. Owens, she uses my name like she owns it. Promised my son his motorcycle. Then reneged. He has created a hostile, unsafe environment for my family. I am asking the board to enforce community courtesy standards and compel him to make good or remove the nuisance. She talks for a while. People like her furnish lies. They add throw pillows, rugs, candles. Theirs for weeks, he threatened. He revved to intimidate. We fear for our safety. And his unstable behavior worries the whole block. At one point, she mentions, there's people who think he's not well. I breathe slow. Because anger is a bad lawyer. Bill nods. Thank you. Karen. He turns to me. Mr. Owens, I stand and slide the still image on top of the stack, the kid at my driveway. Finger out. Mouth. mid-sentence. This is from my doorbell camera. I say. The audio is clear. He says, Mom said you'd give it to me. That was the first time I heard about any so-called commitment. A little ripple goes around the room. I hand copies to the board. Then I give them the title. Registration. The incident number from the police, visit with the officer's notation, no wrongdoing. I include a brief letter from the state attorney's office, acknowledging receipt of a citizen's complaint and stating there is no basis for criminal action. Finally, I slide over the HOA violation notice with Karen's signature and my notes detailing dates and interactions. Bill reads, his glasses slipping down. The board whispers. Karen stares at me like she's drilling holes with her eyes. Mr. Owens. Bill says finally. The board did not have all of this information. The video is significant. Karen recovers fast. Anyone can edit video, she says. And even if he didn't promise, the noise is clearly a violation. I nod. If the HOA has a decibel standard and a process, I'll follow it. But that would involve measurements and a fair hearing. Not officers on my lawn. Because you invented a theft story. Bill's mouth tightens. We'll review our procedures, he says. For now. The board rescinds the violation letter, pending proper evaluation. We'll schedule a sound assessment and a bylaw review. Karen's jaw twitches. Her son slumps in his seat. I go home light for the first time in a week. It doesn't last. 3 days later, I get a cease and desist from a downtown law firm. It claims I emotionally misled a minor, engaged in coercive intimidation, and caused extreme distress. Demanding I surrender the motorcycle as restitution and cease harassment. I laugh, then I see the retainer number. Real, as the glare off a chrome fender. I scan it to Mark. He calls. She's bluffing, he says. And I can hear his eyebrows climb. But if she's using a law firm to pressure you into surrendering property, it edges toward extortion adjacent. We'll draft a response. We send a formal letter, no promises were made, evidence attached, police cleared the scene, HOA rescinded the violation. Any further harassment will be met with a civil claim. My buddy from the vets group, Sophie, puts it on her letterhead and fires it off with the kind of crisp authority you can iron clothes on. Silence settles in. The kind of silence that hums. It feels like the whole neighborhood is holding its breath. And then, the stories start walking across the street. First is Mr. Martinez with his hat in his hands, telling me how Karen threatened to fine him for a mailbox color that was too cheerful. Next is Dana from the corner lot, who got warned about unapproved holiday decorations because her lights were too bright before Thanksgiving. A week later, a young family whispers about a complaint on their service dog. Karen questioned the vest. Because of course, she did. There's a pattern here. And it's as plain as a tire track on new snow. At the next HOA meeting, a petition hits the folding table like a paperback novel. The headline is Crisp Removal of Board Member for Misuse of Authority and Harassment. It's thick with signatures. You can feel a kind of sleepy courage waking up in the chairs. Karen does not show. Bill does. He clears his throat and reads a prepared statement. The board has reviewed complaints, video, letters, and the bylaws. They are moving to censure Karen and remove her from any enforcement role pending a recall vote. He talks about process, balance, fairness. He looks tired but firm. When I roll the Harley home that evening, nobody peeks from behind curtains. A couple of neighbors nod. Mr. Martinez salutes with his gardening glove. Dana says, nice night for it. Like, we're done speaking in code. I'm not naive. Power doesn't vanish, it migrates. But the air feels easier to breathe. Sometimes that's everything. You asked me once, okay? You didn't. But it's the question hanging there, why I kept the Harley if it brings heat. The answer is simple. It's a promise I made to myself, years back, before the neighborhood, before the HOA letters and the meetings with stale cookies. There was a version of me who couldn't sleep. I'd lie there, counting ceiling fan spins and mistakes. A buddy dragged me to a community ride on a Sunday morning. Just come, he said. Helmet on. We'll go slow. We rode through sun-patched roads and peeling billboards, past fields and broken fences and diners with the word home hiding in their hash browns. An old vet named Quincy kept pace with me and talked me through turns like a dance coach. Lean here. Breathe there. Look where you want to go. I know it sounds corny, but that day I found a line that held me steady. So yeah, the Harley's not just a machine. It's a place I can still be a person. When Karen started her campaign, it wasn't about noise. It was about control. There's people who spin rules like spider silk and expect you to walk into the web grateful. They say safety, but they mean obedience. They say aesthetics, but they mean me. I've learned to hear the whisper under the words. The board schedules a sound assessment for a Tuesday at dusk. I clear the driveway, wipe down the bike, and place a chair for the guy the HOA hired, Elliot. Friendly, with a decibel meter that looks like a skinny old radio. Bill shows up, too, along with a couple residents, and oh joy, Karen's son, sulking from a safe distance. Elliot clicks buttons. We'll do an idle reading, then a rev to a conservative level, both at the property line and sidewalk. We'll do it twice to be sure. He speaks like a patient science teacher. I can work with that. We do idle at the property line. The meter shows a number that hovers below the limit the bylaws specify for daytime. Elliot nods. We do a gentle rev. Still below. Sidewalk, same story. He logs the data. Time. Weather. Distance. Then he frowns. Where is the decibel threshold written, he asks Bill. Bill pulls a wrinkled copy of the bylaws. Section 8. Paragraph 2. He says, pointing, then squinting. The text is a masterpiece of vague. It says something like, nuisance noises shall be limited to an acceptable level as determined by the board, taking care to preserve the peaceful enjoyment of all residents. Acceptable level, determined by the board. I look at Elliot. He looks at me. Well, he says, polite as a church mouse. That's not a number. Bill rubs his forehead. We'll fix that, he says. Should have been fixed years ago. Mr. Martinez mutters behind him, just loud enough to be heard. We do the tests anyway. Elliot files a report, which I later get a copy of. The readings show my bike is quieter than a lot of lawn equipment. Funnier still, when a lifted truck rolls by, the meter spikes like a heart monitor in a movie. Elliot shrugs. Data's data. The board posts new draft language. A week later, a clear daytime and evening decibel threshold, measurable at the property line, with specific exceptions for short, necessary noises like lawn care during reasonable hours. It's dull, practical, and exactly the sort of guardrail a community should have. It could have been there all along. But sometimes you need a storm to see where the roof leaks. Karen responds with a flyer. It lands on every doorstep, like junk mail dressed as a sermon. Protect our peace, it says, claiming that unregulated engines threaten our community identity. There are no numbers, of course, Just fear with a gradient background. At the bottom is a call to action. Demand stricter standards. Demand responsibility. I stand on my porch reading it, and let out a sound that's somewhere between a snort and a sigh. Dana walks over. Flyer in hand. You see this? She asks. I did. It lists my address. She says. Voice flat. Says I host loud gatherings. My loud gathering is 3 kids doing homework at the kitchen table. We can hear our own thoughts. Barely. That's not okay. She nods. Jaw tight. We can't keep letting her define what's normal. The recall meeting gets scheduled for a Thursday night. I bring donuts because conflict burns calories. And people forget to eat when their adrenaline is up. The room is full. Bill looks like a substitute teacher about to handle 3rd graders during a fire drill. There's a sign-in sheet. Proxies. And a line at the coffee urn that feels like a therapy cue. The vote requires a solid majority. It gets one. Karen is removed from the board and barred from any enforcement committee for a year. There is a clause that lets her run again after that. Because fairness is a stubborn habit around here. But she'll have to do it without the fog machine of fear she relied on. I'd like to tell you it ended right there. It almost did. Then the tow truck came. It's a Sunday morning quiet. Cloud cover, soft as a cotton blanket. I'm sorting sockets in the garage when I hear that hydraulic hiss and the slow grind of a truck backing up. I step outside to see a flatbed easing down my street. Lights off. Moving like a hunter that thinks it's the forest. No had that cows. No company name big enough to read. Just a fresh magnet slapped on the door and a driver who won't meet my eyes. The truck stops at my curb. He tilts the bed. You're at the wrong house. I call. Hands up. He doesn't answer. What are you towing? He points with his chin. That motorcycle. Orders. From who? From the board. Which board? I ask. Because our board doesn't issue tow orders for vehicles parked in a driveway. He shrugs. Like that's too many words before coffee. Lady called. Said board. Lady named Karen. He looks away. That's my answer. I fish my phone from my pocket and hit record. We need to clear this up. I say. Keeping my voice even. You try to load that bike. And you're stealing. I'll call 911 right now. He scratches his jaw. Says nothing. And then, like a bad sitcom, the back door of Karen's house opens. She steps out with a folder. Proceed. She calls. All fake bravery from across a safe distance. He's in violation. The truck edges forward. The winch whines. I plant my boots between the bed and the Harley, and hold up my phone so the camera sees my face, and the driver and the bike and the street sign and the date and the sky and anything else a judge might want. This is my property. I say. Loud and clear. You are not authorized to remove it. I am calling the police. I dial. The driver swears under his breath and kills the winch. The dispatcher is efficient. She asks my name. Address. A quick description. Is anyone threatening you? Just my Sunday. I say. Which she ignores. Like a pro. 2 cruisers show up in under 10 minutes. The same short officer from before steps out. Sees me. Sees the truck. Sees the bike. He looks like a man who didn't plan on getting déjà vu today. Morning. He says. What's going on? I point politely at the truck. He showed up to tow my motorcycle off my driveway. Says the board ordered it. The officer turns to the driver. Do you have a written order? The driver holds up a page. The officer reads. Frowns. And then, this part is important. He checks the letterhead. Not HOA. A made-up group name, Neighborhood Peace Committee. No, Legal authority. The signature, Karen's. If Gaul had a font, this is it. The officer looks up at Karen. Ma'am, you don't have the authority to tow vehicles from private property. She tosses her hair. It's a nuisance. And that gives you the right to hire a tow, he asks. Tone flat as the road. The community has rights. She snaps. The community doesn't get to break the law. He says. Driver. Pack it up. If you hook that bike, I'm writing you up. Maybe worse. The truck backs out with a hiss of hydraulic shame. Karen retreats into her house and slams the door like it owes her money. The officer turns to me. Document everything. He says. File a report. We'll add this to the case history. Will there be a case, I ask. Half joking. Half not. He gestures with his chin toward Karen's porch. One way or another. I go inside and write it all down while the details are crisp. I email the HOA board. Attach the video. And ask for a formal statement about towing authority so that the next driver thinks twice. Bill replies within an hour with a clear line in bold. The HOA has no authority to tow vehicles from private driveways. He posts it to the community portal and mails paper copies for good measure. Because sometimes doing a thing once actually means doing it 4 times. That afternoon, a knock on my door. Dana's there with a Tupperware of brownies and an expression that says people are tired. I'm not a sugar diplomat, she says. But it felt like a brownie day. We talk at the kitchen island like old friends. Though we've only ever waved with trash cans in hand. She tells me about her kids. About the service dog complaint that had her son in tears. About the way bullies put on blazers and call it civic duty. I tell her about Quincy and the Sunday ride that saved me. Sometimes, what looks like noise is a person holding it together. By evening, the driveway feels quiet again. I roll the Harley a foot or two. Just to hear the soft click as the kickstand settles. I promise myself a lake loop on Monday at sunrise. The world looks different in that pale early light. It looks survivable. The recall knocks Karen off the board. But she doesn't vanish. She becomes the shadow behind the curtain, pulling on strings, whispering to anyone who will listen. She starts a private neighborhood social page, the kind that bans dissent while preaching open dialogue. It fills with the same dozen names agreeing with each other about community standards. None of them have ever taken out a trash can without gloves. Meanwhile, Bill starts fixing stuff. Real fixes. He forms a bylaws committee with residents who can read legalese without falling asleep, and neighbors who know the difference between neat and sterile. There's Mr. Martinez, who brings coffee and a cheerful highlighter. Dana, who's got a memory like a courtroom recorder. And a quiet guy named Patrick, who writes software for a living and can smell ambiguity from 3 blocks away. They start with noise, then work through paint colors, landscaping, holiday decor. And this one makes me grin: vehicles in driveways. The old wording was a mess of inappropriate and unsightly, and maintain the character. The new drafts use measurable terms, time ranges, clear approvals, an appeal process. A requirement that any enforcement must be paired with a specific bylaw section and evidence. Fancy that receipts? Karen's counterattack comes through the back door. She convinces a handful of folks to flood the board with trivial complaints. Too many flower pots at Mr. Martinez's. A flag on Dana's porch that wasn't on the approved size list. A shadow on a lawn that felt unfriendly. It's so petty you could spread it on toast. The goal is obvious: drown the real work in noise until everyone quits. But here's what happens when a bully overplays their hand. The room fills up. People who were quiet start showing up to meetings. Not to fight. but to say, come on, we're better than this. A retired teacher named Gloria brings cookies and a binder labeled Common Sense. A guy who owns a landscaping company explains why a half-inch difference in grass length and the angle of the sun can make a lawn look shaggy for 1 hour on a Tuesday. A teenage girl speaks during the open forum about how the service dog helps her little brother sleep. The air changes. It gets thicker with real life. I sit in the back. Most nights. Listening. I add a few notes when it's my turn. Listen. I say one evening, I'll follow clear rules. Most of us will. But enforcement without empathy isn't community. It's control in a cardigan. There are nods. Some winces. A couple eye rolls from the corner where Karen's friends perch like crows on a fence. That's fine. You don't win, everyone. You don't have to. About a month after the tow truck episode, a letter arrives from the law firm again. It's short, sour, and empty. Our client has decided not to pursue civil action at this time. No apology. Naturally. Just a retreat with the lights off. I take the Harley out the next morning before dawn. The sky is a watercolor smear of blues and purples. I keep the throttle soft. Rolling under the speed limit. Engine humming like a cat that's learned manners. At the lake. Mist slips over the water like breath. I park. Sit on the bench. And feel something I haven't felt since all this started. The clean weight of a quiet morning. Then comes the holiday lights. I wasn't planning anything wild. A string or two across the porch rail. A small lit wreath. But the neighborhood gets a little festival happy. Grandkids visit. Folks remember how to smile. And lights show up blinking. Shimmering. A little tacky in the best way. Dana's kids build a snowman out of painted buckets and wrap it with twinkle lights. Mr. Martinez strings warm whites along his fence, like the world is a diner that never closes. Karen hates it. The private page posts crop up again. Light pollution. Respect, sleep. Think of the children. It's December. For crying out loud. The bylaws say lights allowed until a time at night that is reasonable. Off by a date that is also reasonable. The new draft clarifies it further. The complaints keep coming anyway. On a Thursday night, I catch the flicker of a phone in the dark. Karen stands at the corner. Filming houses. Narrating. Violation. Violation. She points to Mr. Martinez's fence with a whisper like a hiss. She records my porch. Then Dana's buckets. I step out. Not angry. Not even particularly brave, just tired. Karen. I call softly. You okay? She startles. I am documenting. Looks like it. I say. But are you okay? Because this seems a lot. She straightens. Some of us care about standards. Some of us care about people. I say. And I keep my voice warm. Because cruelty is contagious, and I don't want it. If a string of lights steals your sleep, maybe we can figure out timers together. She stares at me. Hard. For a second a blink, you can see the loneliness under the armor. Then, it's gone. Mind your business. She snaps. And stalks away. A week later. A letter arrives at every door. The board is hosting a winter walk. Hot cocoa in the clubhouse. Kids can bring ornaments to hang on a communal tree. There's a little line at the bottom that makes me smile. We will provide extra timers for anyone who wants help setting lights to go off at a reasonable hour. That's how it's supposed to work. Not hammers. Help. The walk is sweet and awkward in the way neighborhood gatherings always are. There's a crock pot of something that smells like cinnamon. Somebody's uncle tells the same story twice. A retired nurse checks on everybody, like we're a row of vital signs. I end up next to Gloria. who has upgraded her common sense binder with page tabs in about 6 colors. She leans in. "We're not perfect," she says. "But we're practicing." "Practicing what?" "Being neighbors. It's a verb." She smiles. "Also, for what it's worth, I never thought your motorcycle was the problem. It was the excuse." I nod. "I kinda figured." Spring creeps in with the creak of sprinklers and the smell of cut grass. The bylaws committee wraps their work and presents the new book. It's not actually a book, but it feels like one, measurable, humble, boring in the best possible ways. The board votes to adopt. The room claps. Someone whistles softly and then blushes. Afterward, Bill pulls me aside. "Thank you," he says, "for not blowing up." I laugh. "You mean, for not revving the Harley like a maniac right under Karen's windows?" He smiles. "Something like that. Truth is, I wanted to shout more than once. I wanted to stand on my roof and shake my fist at every ridiculous letter and piece of paper that pretended to be a law. But shouting rarely moves the needle. Receipts do. Calm does. Patience, does. A few days later, I find a small card on my porch under a smooth rock. No signature. Just a sentence written in neat loops. "Thank you for holding the line." There's a little sketch of a motorcycle. Lopsided and charming. I stick it on the fridge. Karen doesn't vanish. She lurks. She tries to bait me twice, once by standing in her yard and loudly reciting nuisance rules to her friend. Once by sending me a certified letter demanding I disclose my engine modifications for community safety. I ignore the performance and answer the letter with 3 lines. I comply with state law. The HOA has no authority over engine modifications. Have a good day. Then I go about living. I wish I could say we all held hands and sang. 'Cause that's not how real life lands. But the drama decays. People get on with gardens and garbage days and repairs. The service dog gets pets from every kid with a sticky hand. Mr. Martinez paints his mailbox a cheerful blue, and nobody dies. And me, I ride. Soft throttle mornings. Loop around the lake. Stop at the diner where the waitstaff calls everyone hun and means it. Quincy shows up sometimes with a smile that still fits under his mustache. We talk about nothing and everything. He asks about the HOA. And I say, "We're learning." He nods. "Good," he says. "Keep going." Then, late summer, I get a call from Bill. "There's something you should know," he says. "Karen filed a public records request with the county about you. Property lines, tax records, some nonsense about easements. That sounds like a hobby that needs a better name. Just heads up. We'll keep it above board on our end." I thank him, hang up, and sit with it. There's a kind of person who can't accept a boundary. They don't see a fence, they see a dare. But a boundary isn't a dare. It's a map of where care happens and where it doesn't belong. A week later, a county inspector appears. Apologetic and efficient. "Got a complaint," he says, gesturing to the strip of grass between my driveway and the sidewalk. "Alleged encroachment. We measure. We check plats. The numbers, oh. Sorry. The words say, I'm within the line, by a good foot." He signs the paper, shakes my hand, and says, "Some people spend their lives trying to catch a neighbor moving a fence. Makes you wonder what they're avoiding in their own yard." That night, a small group of us end up on my porch with cold sodas and a bowl of chips like it's 1987, and we're on a sitcom stoop. Dana tells me her kids are learning to ride bikes. Mr. Martinez brings over a photo of his grandbaby, in a onesie that says, Assistant Gardener. Patrick explains how he wrote a script to track when bylaws updates are posted, so Karen can't claim nobody told us. We laugh. Not mean. Just relieved. Across the street, Karen's lights are off. I think just for a second about what it must be like to live inside a mind that runs hot. Then I let it go. Not my job to fix everyone. My job is to keep my side of the fence decent and my heart from turning brittle. If you've stuck with me this long, you probably expect a neat bow. There isn't one. Community is not a problem you solve. It's a story you keep writing. Sometimes the pen's heavy. Sometimes it flies. Here's what I know now. First, document everything. Not because you're spoiling for a fight, but because facts save you from shouting. A screenshot beats a scream. A timestamp beats a temper. Keep your file steady and your voice low. Second, read the bylaws. They're dull on purpose. Learn the dull. Ask for numbers, not vibes. Nuisance is a feeling. Decibel at the property line is a fact. Feelings matter, but they can't be the judge, jury, and tow truck. Third, show up. Sit in a folding chair while a neighbor repeats themselves about hedge heights and remember that you repeat yourself. 2. When you're afraid, bring cookies. Bring patience. Bring one good joke. Used sparingly. 4th, stay human. Don't let a bully turn you into a mirror. Don't drink the bitterness just because someone serves it in a crystal glass. Quiet strength is louder than you think. And lastly, ride your ride, whatever that is for you. For me, it's a Harley under an oak tree. Chrome winking at a sun that doesn't check with an HOA before it rises. For you, it might be a garden patch. A holiday string light that turns on like hope. A service dog on a porch, keeping nightmares smaller than they could be. These days, when I idle the bike at the curb, folks don't flinch. Mr. Martinez gives me a 2-finger wave from the brim of his hat. Dana's kids count the cylinders and giggle, even though they get the number wrong on purpose because teasing is a love language. Bill nods from his mail run. Gloria reminds me there's a potluck next week and asks if I'll bring coleslaw, even though mine's mostly store-bought and everybody knows it. Karen still lives across the cul-de-sac. She keeps to herself more. She glares sometimes. Sometimes she looks tired in a way that makes me feel a little sorry for her. And then I catch myself. Set that soft-heartedness down, gentle, and step back into my lane. She is not my project. She is my neighbor. And that means we share a street, not a soul. And so, when I ask the engine to sing, it does. Not a scream, just a note that says, I'm here. I'm home. I'm part of a place that is learning out loud. So, tell me, what would you do here? Anyone else had a HOA? Try a stunt like this. Drop your story below. Let's trade notes. Keep receipts. And help each other hold the line. I'm gonna take the lake loop at sunrise. Might even stop for pancakes. 'Cause you gotta write the sweet into your day on purpose.